Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is Mindy Egan and in today's video I'm going to be creating a veggie garden platform pop-up. I'm going to start by die cutting out all of my main pieces for the platform pop-up. So you will need two of these. This is going to be our base or what is going to be the pop-up portion. I also die cut out two of these pieces. This is actually from the platform pop-up cloud wraparound, but I'm going to use them for something other than clouds. So I will need two of those. And I'm also going to be using the platform pop-up cloud insert. So this is going to go in the middle of my platform pop-up. I'm going to start with this piece, and instead of having it be this bright white, I'm going to add a little bit of ink to it. So this is the Merman ink from Lawnfawn, just taking my blending brush and adding a little bit of that blue around the outer edges. And I will go in just a little bit in between the clouds, but I don't want to go in too far. Next, I'm going to take these two pieces that are actually the cloud wraparound, but I am going to turn them into lumps of dirt, I guess I would say, or mounds of dirt to go with my garden. So I'm adding a little bit of pizza crust at the very top, blending that down to about halfway on the insert, and then going over the very top edge with dough ink. Both of these are from Lawn Fawn. I wiped up my glass surface to get rid of any of that brown ink, and then I'm bringing these wraparound pieces back in, and I'm starting at the bottom. This time I'm using celery ink. I'm going to go up about halfway once again, just barely meeting the brown ink. I want to add some stenciling to this, so I placed a little bit of repositionable tape behind my piece so it's secured down to my glass work surface. Then I'm going to bring in the grassy stencil. So I'm going to hold this down with this adorable washi tape, and then I'm going to ink blend with a darker shade of green. I will be using freshly cut grass and my blending brush, and the reason I started with that lighter color is it just kind of added a little bit of a hue to the very background. And the freshly cut grass color is going to be a nice contrast against that background, and I will do that to both pieces. I still had a little bit of the sticky residue on my surface, so I could just tack my second piece down, and I used my first piece as a guide to try and get my grass lined up evenly across both pieces. So when it wraps around, it's going to look continuous. So even though this is meant to be a cloud wraparound, it works really great for your mounds of dirt, or even if you add green all over it, it could be bushes. With the two main platform pop-up pieces that I die cut out of 80-pound white cardstock, the die provides all of these scored lines. So I am going to just take my bone folder, I'm going to fold along all of those scored lines and reinforce each of those folds with my bone folder to make them nice and crisp. Here I have my two T-shaped pieces that are going to be the inserts for the inside of my platform pop-up, and these are the cloud inserts that I'm going to glue over the top. So again, I am adding some brown ink. This time I just came in with the dough ink because you're not going to see the very bottom portion of it. Then it dawned on me that if somebody is looking down from the top into their platform pop-up, we're going to have this stark white ground, and I needed that to kind of match the rest of my card, or match the rest of the project. So I just masked off the tab, which is where I will be adding adhesive, and this piece with the slot in it, or that slit, I just added a little bit of brown ink. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just enough to add some color. Then for each of the tabs on my platform pop-up, I'm going to be adding the 1/4-inch double-sided tape. I will also bring in those T pieces, which at the very bottom of it, so the opposite side of the actual T portion is a little tab that I added that double-sided tape to as well. Then I'm taking one of the T-shaped pieces and I'm going to feed it in through the slot on my platform pop-up. I have the double-sided adhesive facing away from me. I'm going to make sure that that T portion is straight, and then I can remove the double-sided or the backing of the double-sided adhesive and push that down. Then I can remove the backing on that larger tab with the double-sided adhesive. I'm going to fold that over, and actually I found it easier if I flipped this over, and then I could fold that piece down over the double-sided adhesive. I'll show you that once again. Now this is just one half of our platform pop-up. So this is our second piece. Again, I am taking that T piece, I'm going to feed it in through the slot, having it so that that double-sided adhesive is facing away from me. Once I have that T lined up straight, I can remove the backing and fold that tab down so it's secured down in the bottom of our platform pop-up. Again, I'm going to fold this up. I have that larger tab with the double-sided adhesive, remove the backing, and then just fold that flap over. Now we have our two halves complete, so we can start putting our platform pop-up together. So I'm going to line these up right next to each other. I'm going to remove the backing of that double-sided adhesive again and fold that over so it creates one long strip. So you can see how this is starting to come together. Before I go any further, I need to add this cloud insert. So I'm going to take more of that double-sided adhesive. Again, this is the 1/4 inch. I'm going to put it on one side of my clouds, bring that up, and this is going to be sandwiched in between. So I'll remove the backing of that double-sided adhesive. And what I found easiest is to kind of fold my platform or push that up a little bit. So I'm really only seeing that top line, and I can line up the top folded line with that stitched line from the cloud insert. For these smaller cloud inserts, I am going to be adding the 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape to those strips. So I kind of fold it up every now and then to make sure I'm getting these facing in the right direction so I can put those little mounds of dirt right over the top of those T-shaped pieces. Here I realized I really need to add some more color to the back of the clouds because we're going to be able to have a scene on both sides. Then adding that skinny piece of double-sided adhesive to the last T-shaped piece and adding my second mound of dirt. Now I can secure this together. So I'm taking the 1/4 inch double-sided tape once again. I'm placing it on the opposite side of the clouds. It really doesn't matter which side. We just want to make sure we have adhesive here to secure it together. So when I fold this up, I'm matching the bottom of the platform pop-up up to make sure it is flush. And then we have this one last tab here that we can secure together. And now my platform pop-up is totally put together, super quick and easy, and now we can have the fun of decorating it. So back to the wraparound piece, before I add that to my platform pop-up, I am going to bring in some white acrylic paint. I diluted it with a little bit of water and I'm adding splatters. Totally optional. I just thought it added some fun interest to this wraparound piece. I do take a heat tool and dry that so that way I don't smear those white splatters. When I die cut this wraparound piece, it did provide the scored lines on there. So I'm going to go through both of these pieces and just fold along that scored line. Each end has a tab on it, which is how we are going to secure it together to create kind of that belly band for our platform pop-up. Again, I'm going to use some double-sided tape. I love using the double-sided tape because it is a very strong hold. I'm going to line these two pieces up next to each other. So I have this tab, I'm removing the double-sided adhesive backing and I'm going to fold that over. And then I can do that on this other piece and fold that flap up. So now we have kind of our belly band for the platform pop-up. To secure this onto that platform pop-up, I'm taking a Tombow tape runner and I'm adding adhesive all the way around that. Now I do have to pick it up to be able to get the tape on the other side so it doesn't stick to my work surface. And then I fold both of these pieces as flat as I can and just kind of wiggle it on. Now, right now, you're probably thinking I did it wrong, and I did. I will fix this later on. The scored lines of the wraparound should match up with the scored lines of your platform pop-up. So I will show you how I end up fixing that. Now to create my scene for my little veggie garden, I stamped out some images from the Veggie Happy stamp set. I have this adorable little mouse that's going to be pushing a wheelbarrow, and I also have the mouse that is in his bib overalls and a rake. So I'm coloring in the mice with E47, E44, E43, and E42 using my Copic markers, and they are all stamped on 80-pound white cardstock using the lawnfawn jet black ink. I like to add a lot of contrast to my images, even though they are super small. So that is why I have so many markers used for just these little mice. But you could get away with just using one or two markers if you prefer. For the rake and also the wheelbarrow, I'm going to bring in E87 and E84. I was really trying to change up the tones of all of my browns because I knew I was going to use a few different browns throughout the card. So I just kind of tried to change up the tone of each of those. For the belly and the ears of the mice, I'm going to use E95 as my dark color and E01 for my highlight. I have 3 tomato plants stamped out. So instead of creating a really full scene, I'm just going to have a tomato plant garden. So I'm coloring in the leaves for each of these using G07, YG06, and YG01. and I'm going to bring in a G48, which is a really nice dark green for the top of all of my tomatoes. I also figured since I have these greens out and it's one of my favorite green combinations, I'm just going to go ahead and color my wheelbarrow that same green. That way it just limits me bringing out more colors than I really need on my desk. I also used some of those greens for the little sprout that's starting out at the very top there. For the soil, I'm going to use T4, T2, and T1. I had contemplating coloring it brown because it's soil, but I just felt with the mice and with all the brown I already had on the platform pop-up, it would get lost. So I thought just making it a neutral color would be nice. Then I have my tomatoes that I'm coloring with R35, and then I'm going to come in with R39. So I started with the lightest color, the R35, and just added a little bit of shading on one side of the tomato with the R39. Sometimes with these small areas and my reds, I tend to bleed. So this is limiting how much of that ink I'm really putting down on the cardstock. For the sign that I'm going to put with my tomato garden, I am using E37, E35, and E33. I also used the E33 for that label on my soil bag. And then the last thing I need to color in are these adorable bib overalls, which I'm using B95, B93, and B91. Now, all of my images are colored in, but before I do any die cutting, I want to add something to my little sign. So I picked a sentiment off of that Veggie Happy stamp set, just using a small acrylic block and my black licorice ink. I'm going to stamp that in my sign. Then I can take the coordinating dies, hold them down with Post-it tape, and run this through my die cut machine. I also used up the remaining cardstock from my images by die cutting each of these pieces out one more time in just a plain white cardstock, and I'm gluing my images on top of that. So that's just going to add some stability to this in my platform pop-up. I'm also going to take a white gel pen and just add some little highlights here and there to my mice, my tomato plants, and also the wheelbarrow. And then I can start working on the assembly of my platform pop-up. So I'm just going to be careful when I'm attaching a lot of these inside of that platform pop-up because I don't want my glue to spill over and glue everything shut. So I'm just adding little dabs of liquid glue to the bottom of each of the images. I would also say to keep in mind where your mounds of dirt is on the outside, that wraparound, because if you're placing your images too far down, then they're going to be kind of hidden. So right here, I was being mindful of that. I thought I placed them high enough, but you're going to see in a little bit where I finally noticed I put the wraparound on wrong. So it did change things up a little bit. My little guy with the wheelbarrow is going to go on the back side. And I think this is a super fun scene where I have multiple things going on. So it can be a scene all the way around, no matter what angle somebody is looking at it. And it was probably right about this time that I noticed my wraparound was not right. And the reason I realized it is the scored lines from the wraparound were not matching up with the scored lines of the platform pop-up. So I am going to carefully peel all of this up. I was very gentle. You could also take a spatula to help kind of pry that up. Thankfully, I used the Tombow tape runner, so it was pretty easy to lift that up. I still have quite a bit of that tape runner on there. So again, I'm just going to flatten everything as much as I can and then just wiggle it and put that wraparound back on. So all of my scored lines should match up now. Although after I fixed it, then some of my images in the inside were placed a little bit too far down, but I was not going to rip them up because I used liquid glue for that. So I am going to just leave them as is, but I do need to add a sentiment. So I'm taking this little stitched rectangle that I die cut out of white cardstock and also wood grain cardstock in the light brown. I'm going to die cut the word hello out of that light brown wood grain cardstock, and then I'm going to layer these two pieces together. So I believe this hello and that stitched rectangle comes from the original platform pop-up. And I thought that wood grain just tied in really well with my whole garden scene. I even saved that little inside piece of the O to make it a complete look. Then I added some foam squares to the back of my sign, and I'm going to pop that up right on the front of my platform pop-up. I did find it easier to flatten that while I place that down. Now, you could also decorate all the way around your platform pop-up as well, maybe using that little worm that was on the stamp set or adding in a few more vegetables here and there. You could maybe add a sun or a rainbow with those clouds. There's so many ways to really build up this scene, but I tend to stay with a pretty clean and simple look just so that there isn't too much going on. And either way, the recipient is going to totally get a kick out of these. So there is my veggie garden platform pop-up. I really enjoyed creating this card today. I hope you find it inspiring and thank you so much for joining me. See you soon.